Welcome to the Skill and Ideas Podcast by Izodua Asemota.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. In today's podcast, we'll be actually dwelling on adaptability. And so I have maybe taken the liberty to actually title this podcast, The Illiterate of the Future. And I'm going to be starting by a quote by Alvin Toffler. And it says, "The illiterate of the future will not be the person who cannot read. It will be the person who does not know how to learn," unquote. In today's episode, we are going to unpack what I call one of the most prophetic statements ever made about the modern world. When Alvin Toffler said this decades ago, he wasn't talking about reading books, nah. He was talking about adaptability. He was warning us that in a fast-changing world, the greatest disadvantage is not ignorance, it is rigidity. And nowhere is this more evident than in businesses. So let me take you, or tell you a true story. There was a time when Kodak was photography itself. If you took pictures, you used Kodak film. The brand dominated the global market for nearly a century. And here's the twist. Kodak actually invented the first digital camera in 1975. Yes, the very technology that would later on disrupt them was created inside their own lab. But the leadership feared digital would kill their highly profitable business venture. So instead of learning and adapting, they protected what was working, like most of us get to do. They chose preservation over reinvention. By the time digital photography exploded in the 2000s, competitors had embraced the shift already. Kodak had not, and had not learned fast enough. In 2012, the company filed for bankruptcy. Very sad. Kodak didn't fail because it couldn't read the market. It failed because it refused to learn differently. And that's modern illiteracy. So I'm adding another story to this to give us the other part of this. And that was actually the story of Netflix, which I'll title The Rise of the Learner. Now, compare that story with Kodak with the Netflix story that I'm about to say. Netflix started as a DVD rental by mail company, competing against Blockbuster. And I think I'll share that story maybe in another episode. When streaming technology began emerging, Netflix disrupted its own DVD model because anyone else could. Then it learned again, shifting from licensing streaming content to producing original content. Basically, from mail service to streaming and then to global content studio. At every stage, Netflix simply asked the question, what must we unlearn to stay relevant? Which I think is a question that we ought to ask ourselves, even in our personal careers and the things that we get to do. In the industrial age, literacy actually meant reading and writing. In the digital age, literacy means learning new technologies, learning new markets, learning new business models, learning how to unlearn old success patterns. Your competitive advantage today is not your current knowledge, no. It is actually your learning velocity, how fast you get to learn, unlearn, and learn again. The most dangerous sentence in the business today is, "This is how we have always done it." And that's how most of us actually also approach life, by saying, "This is how I've always done it. This is how I know best how to do it." Therefore, we are unwilling to actually learn what we need to do to take us to the next phase. And so what does it mean to know how to learn? It means that you have to know how to have curiosity over comfort, how to do experimentations over your ego, data over assumptions, reinvention over reputation. The companies and leaders who survive are not the smartest people. They are the most adaptable people. And so, as founders, executives, or professionals, ask yourself, what skills am I relying on that may expire in 5 years? What assumptions about my industry have I not challenged? Where am I protecting comfort instead of pursuing growth? What must I unlearn this year? Because in the future economy, especially in emerging markets like ours, the winners will not necessarily be the most funded. They will be the most flexible. And so we want to conclude by saying that the illiterate of the future is not someone who cannot read a book. It is the executive who cannot read change. It is the founder who cannot read trends. It is the professional who cannot read disruption. Literacy is no longer about letters. It is about learning. And the question is not, are you educated? The question is, are you adaptable? If this episode has challenged you, share it with other leaders who need to hear it. Because in this century, your survival strategy is simple. You need to learn, unlearn, and relearn. See you in the next episode.